Hello and welcome to Saturday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where, as you can see, I'm still on holiday, still on my laptop, but hopefully these videos are still well received. What have I got for you today? Well, this is a puzzle called Futomaki. It might be Futomaki. I'm not sure how to say it. I believe it's a reference to a sushi roll, which Pseudonym, who constructed the puzzle, says this puzzle reminds him of. So I can sort of see that. I suppose these sort of arrows are delineating a circle, and maybe the 9 is the whatever you get in a sushi roll, and the sort of cages are the rice. So it's a lovely idea, and apparently this is a fairly approachable puzzle, so do have a go. What do I want to mention before? Quick insert here, because I very nearly forgot to say happy birthday, happy 31st birthday to Mireille. Mireille, you really touched Mark and I a month or two ago when you wrote us a very kind email in which you referenced a video by Brené Brown, which I will try and include the link to under this video. It made us feel a bit better about ourselves given the amount of stuff we miss on our average solve. And anyway, we were very grateful to you for that, and we wish you all the very best for today and hope you have a super day. With that, back to solving. Well, it's the last day of the month, and that means tomorrow is the first day of August, and on the first day of August we release for our patrons their new reward. And I think the reward is a set of puzzles by Grockles, the astrophysicist, themed around thermometers of different lengths. It's a magnificent set of puzzles. I think there are 10 puzzles in all, so do have a go. And yeah, actually this is the first chance I've had to say congratulations to Valentin Dallarit as well. Valentin, of course, was the lucky recipient of Anita Burge's Sudoku cushion, for being the name pulled out of the hat for winning Jovial's Sudoku extravaganza. I think, I'm not sure of the exact number, to be honest, but I think it's something like 1,000, which is a lot of puzzles that have been solved of Jovial's in the last 30 days or so. So look out for that tomorrow. That is coming then, probably around 4 o'clock UK time, if we remember. Now, what are the rules of Futomaki? Let me read them to you. Normal Sudoku rules apply. Digits on arrows must sum to the digit in the attached circle. So that's normal arrow rules. That means those 3 cells there, whatever goes in those 3 cells, you sum them up and add them up, and that's what you put in the circle. Digits in cages must sum to the small clue in the top left corner of the cage. Digits cannot repeat within a cage. Or on either main diagonal. Right, okay, so we have normal killer Sudoku rules, which means those 3 squares there sum to 9, and don't do something like that, because obviously you've repeated the 1, which is against the rules of killer Sudoku. And we've also got to make sure that each of these main mark diagonals cannot have a repeated digit on it, so they've got to have the digits 1 to 9 once each on each of these diagonals as well. I do enjoy this sort of puzzle, I have to say. There's something that sort of, it makes me think that geometry is normally important, and we shall see in the solve whether that does turn out to be true. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. I've not been doing very much Sudoku on my holiday. I have to say, I've been working through a Taketa puzzle book on the beach, and that's been the sum total of my solving, apart from a couple of videos. So let's just see. Well, 24 cage in 3 cells, I can take that is 7, 8 and 9, and that is not a 9, look, because we get a given digit in this one, which is incredibly generous, of pseudonym. Okay, now look, there's a 22 cage here. Now a 22 cage in 3 cells must contain a 9, and that 9 has got to be in that domino because of this 9 here, which actually doesn't seem to be terribly helpful. There are 2 ways of making 22 in 3 cells. You can have 985 or 976. I don't think we know which variation on that theme this 22 is. We've got 2 symmetrical 5 cages. In fact, the whole grid is quite beautifully symmetric, isn't it? There's symmetrical killer cages, different totals unsurprisingly, but they are symmetrically arranged. All the arrows are symmetrical. What is it I'm meant to be spotting here? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I'm tempted. I'm tempted by two things at the moment, and I'm not sure which of those is going to be sensible. I know this is a pregnant pause because I'm trying to work out which one of them I want to talk about, if I want to talk about either of them. Now, hang on a sec. Let me just think about this. I'm thinking about 9s. I will tell you that. That's one of the digits I'm thinking about. The other thing I'm thinking about is set. So set equivalence theory. But I am really not certain that either of those things is going to be useful here. Maybe we'll look at 9s first. And I hope it's obvious why I'm thinking about 9s. I'm thinking about 9s because there are obviously in row 1, well, the potency of this 9 in the center and the potency of these arrow cells is what's interesting to me, at least. In fact, yeah, and it works the same in the bottom row, albeit that the arrow is a little bit shorter and stubbier. Because 9 can't go, look, in any of those squares. Whoops. Oh, I'm not pressing the right... Maybe I wasn't pressing the control key as I meant to. And because of the 9 in the middle, the 9 can't go in those cells either. Which means that... Actually, what we might do is actually rule the roost entirely over where 9 cannot go in this puzzle, because the 9 in the middle is really potent. It gets rid of obviously both diagonals, where we can't have another 9. It gets rid of those 3 squares by Sudoku, these 3 squares by Sudoku, and it gets rid of, oh, it's already got rid of the whole of box 5. Now, okay, well there is a very unusual fish pattern that I can see, although I'm far from convinced it's going to do. Let me show you what I'm thinking about. I'll just highlight those squares in purple. So I think those, no, there's no, those also, look, because of the 9 up here, those can't be 9s. Those can't be 9s for the same reason. We know the 9 in box 6 is in these 2 cells. You can't put 9s in a 5 cage. You can't put 9s in a 9 cage of 3 cells. You'd have to put 2 zeros in as well. You can't actually put 9 in this 12 cage either, because if you did put a 9 here, this would have to be a 1 and a 2, and then this arrow would be broken, because 3 plus 4 plus 5 is 12, and you can't put 12 in a single cell of the Sudoku. So anyway, that's, I think, all the cells that can't be 9s, but that's not actually what I noticed. What I've noticed is if you look down column 1, let's highlight the cells that can be 9. Let's look down column 4, highlight the cells that can be 9. Do the same in column 6, do the same in column 9. All of those squares are the only squares, the green cells are the only cells that can take 9s in those 4 columns. Now, that is a jellyfish pattern. And a jellyfish is like the, well, it's like the 4th dimension of Sudoku, Sudoku trickery, I suppose. The X-wing being the first, the swordfish being the second. Well, is that right? Maybe I should say the X-wing is the second, the swordfish is the third, and the jellyfish is the 4th. Now, what am I talking about? What is a jellyfish? I'm sure many of you are very familiar with jellyfishes. I am very familiar with jellyfishes, actually. I've been dodging compass jellyfishes all day. But What is a jellyfish in Sudoku terms? Well, let us think about how many 9s are going to appear in the green cells I've highlighted. That's a fairly simple question. The answer is obviously 4, because there's going to be 1 9 in column 1 in one of those 4 squares, 1 9 in column 4 in one of those 4, 1 9 in column 6 in one of those 4, and 1 9 in column 9 in one of those 4. So there are definitely 4 9s altogether in the green cells. But if I was to ask the question, how many 9s will there be in row 2 of the grid, we'd say there's going to be 1 9. There can only be 1 9 in any row of a Sudoku. If you put 2 9s into a row, you will break the puzzle. There's going to be 1 9 in row 3. There's going to be 1 9 in row 7, and there's going to be 1 9 in row 8. Now we know that the 4 9s that therefore appear in those rows of the Sudoku must appear in the green cells, because we know that there are 4 9s in the green cells. So what does that tell us about the rest of row 2, 3, 7 and 8? Could we put a 9 in this square? The answer is no, because this will be a 5th 9 in rows 2, 3, 7 and 8, and there cannot be 5 9s in those 4 rows. So what we can say now is we can eliminate 9s from these cells. It's going to be a little bit interesting because it is affecting the arrow circles. Oh, that 12 I should have made purple. I thought I'd said that. Those squares there. So none of those squares can now be 9s, which means that we get some 1s in the grid, or at least some pencil mark 1s, because if you can't put a 9 in any of these circles, and you can't because of the jellyfish, we now know that the maximum size of any of these circles is 8, and the minimum size of any of these circles is 6, because they are all 3-cell arrows. That's all. It's funny actually, isn't it? Oh no, hang on, I've been thinking this is a 3-cell arrow. Ignore me. That's absolute gibberish regarding this one. Sorry, I've been sort of assuming symmetry as I've been looking at the puzzle, but I've just noticed this one is not 3 cells. So this, okay. It's true for these. These all have to be at least 6 because they're 3 cells long, and 1 plus 2 plus 3 adds to 6. But this one, we know it's not 9. But it could be 5. Bobbins. It could be 5. It can't be less than 5 because we can't put a 1 on the arrow. So the minimum we could put on this arrow is a 2 and a 3. So that's a 5, 6, 7 or 8. And these 3-cell arrows now must all have 1s on them, because in order, if you think about the 3 totals, a 6 is a 1, 2 and a 3, a 7 is a 1, 2 and a 4, and an 8 is a 1, 2, 5 or a 1, 3, 4. Now, okay, not seeing anything brilliant here, to be honest. I'm wondering if this is the right trick. 1 has to be in one of those 3 cells. Sorry. Too much surfing, not enough Sudokuing. Let's Control A. Let's get rid of the highlighting and have another think. I'm actually wondering about whether or not to look at the set implications of this row, this column, and this column. But because I think I've seen this sort of thing before. So the way to think about this might be, and I've no idea whether this is going to do anything or not, but this is the sort of thing I'm thinking of. The sort of setup of a Fistamafell ring, but where the ring's been expanded. So the purple squares here are obviously 4 sets of the digits 1 to 9. If we imagine the correct solution to this puzzle, we could say unequivocally that the purple squares contain 4 sets of the digits 1 to 9. Now, what would we say? What would we say if we were going to go, we'll make these green. So this is the green's 1 set of the digits 1 to 9. Row 1 is definitely 1 set of the digits 1 to 9. Row 9, that's another set of the digits 1 to 9. So that's 2 sets of the digits 1 to 9. What I'm going to try and do is get to 4 though. So maybe I'm going to go, yeah, this is going to be tricky. So I'm going to go column 1 and column 9 as well. So I'm just going to highlight all of those. So what my intention here is to highlight the whole of row 1, the whole of row 9, the whole of column 1, and the whole of column 9, and say that's 4 sets of the digits 1 to 9, i.e. it's the same set of digits that I'd had originally highlighted in purple, because the purple squares were 4 sets of the digits 1 to 9. Now the slight tricky thing here is that these corner cells have all been highlighted twice effectively in the greens, because they are part of row 1 and they are part of column 1. So the normal trick with set is to get to this point and say, well, we can say unequivocally that the purple set contained row 1 column 2, because this is definitely in, this was definitely originally purple, and we could say that the green set unequivocally contained row 1 column 2. So I might as well just remove it from both sets, and I can remove this square and still say that the purples and the greens are definitely equal. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it accepting there's a slight complication with the corner cells. Now I can't just delete these corner cells, because if I do, I'm neglecting the fact that these corner cells were included twice in green. So in fact, what I've got to do is turn them green. I've got to delete them, if you like, and then restore their greenness. And then we should find we've got the same number of cells in green and purple, he says, hoping. Yes, we have. We've got 16 in each, which is, 16 is such a common number for these set things. I mean, it's what appears in Fistamafell, and this is basically an expanded version of the Fistamafell ring. Now, does it tell us anything beyond what we've already got? Right, and just to be clear, what we've proved, by the way, and I hope it's obvious, is we've proved that the greens and the purples are the same set of digits. So these 16 cells are equal to one another. So, inter alia, we can say that within the purple cells, there must be four ones. There must be 4 ones, because this is a 1. There's definitely a 1 in there, there's definitely a 1 in there, there's definitely a 1 in there. Now, okay, so that means in each of these little 2x2 boxes, there must be a 1, because we can't put more than 1 in any of these individual 2x2 boxes, because they're all in individual boxes of the Sudoku. And that's very irritating, because that doesn't seem to do anything. Now the other thing we can say, this is better. This is better, right. The other thing we can say is we've got to put these high digits actually this is much more interesting than I thought. This is really very clever. Where are we going to put the 6s, 7s and 8s in those 3 squares in green? The answer is never on an arrow. Because none of the circles can contain a 9 because of the jellyfish we found, you can never put a 6 on an arrow, and you clearly can't put 7s and 8s on 3-cell arrows, so the 6, 7s and 8s are going to have to go in the corner squares. Where they will see each other. Where they will see each other. Hang on. So what I'm thinking now is that because I've got to put a 6, 7 and an 8 into 3 of those 4 squares, you can see that if I put 6 here, for example, or no, let me put this better. Let's put 6, 7 or 8 in there. Let's say this one is the equivalent of this one. So this and this are the same digit. But now, whatever this digit is, it rules itself out from that square, and that square because of the diagonal. Which means that this one, which has to appear in a corner cell because of the geometry of the greens and the purples, must be a different digit. So these are a set, no, these 3 are a set of the digits 6, 7 and 8, and they have to appear in the corners. And I'm wondering if we can do something with this as a result of that, but I don't think we can, because I think this could be a 5. And if this was a 5, it could appear on a green arrow, I think. That might not be correct, but I think it is correct. So I know that these are 6, 7 and 8. I'd love this to be a 5 and this to complete the sort of quadruple round the edge. That does, it almost feels like that's what I'm supposed to be seeing. I just can't see how to eliminate the possibility this 5 goes on an arrow. Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, sorry. Right, okay. That can't be a 6 or a 7. Here we go. Here we go. Why can't this be a 6 or a 7? Well, let's look at the mathematics. Oh, it's the secret, I suppose. Yeah, no, I'll get the chance to tell you the secret. If you're not familiar with the secret is very important, especially in killer Sudoku. And it relates to the fact that if I correctly complete any box, any row, or any column of a Sudoku, obviously I will fill that row, column, or box with the digits 1 to 9 once each. If you add up those digits, you get 45. Now, if this was a 6, those 3 squares would add up to 6. These 3 squares would add up to 13. So those squares altogether would add up to 19. There's 2 ways of realizing that's impossible. The first way is that you cannot make 6 different digits add up to 19. Because if you use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, you'll get 21. It's good to learn triangular numbers. And the other way of realizing it is to deduct 19 from 45, which we know the whole box adds up to, and we would realize that those squares have to be rather too high. They'd have to be equal to 26, which is impossible because 7, 8 and 9 only add up to 24. So this square is an 8, and that only just allows those 6 cells to add up to 21. So we now know that these digits are the digits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and this is therefore a 7, 8, 9 triple. That's not an 8. There is an 8 in one of those 2 squares by Sudoku. We know one of these 3 is now an 8. I don't really know how to pencil mark this. It's probably this one, but we don't know that for sure. But clearly, maybe we can... Yeah, okay, so now look, I can remove 8 as a possibility from these 2 because we know that this is a 6, 7, 8 triple. That means there's now a 2 on these arrows, because whether they're 6 or 7, you always need a 2 on a 6 arrow and a 7 arrow. So there's now a 2 in green, which means there needs to be at least 2 2s in purple. there. That's probably not very useful. Oh dear. Which that's not a 1. Yes, that's desperate. I know it's desperate. I'm sorry. I'm just not spotting anything good. Oh dear. Maybe I've got to rethink the jellyfish stuff now. It would be a bit harsh if you've got to do jellyfish and set to break into this, and then go back to jellyfish again. Oh, I can't grief. Right, okay, this one as well is restricted. So that's going to give me this one. Yes, yes, watch. If this is 6, that would be a 1, 2, 3 arrow. Why is that a problem? Well, it's a problem for this cage. If this is a 1, 2, 3 arrow, that's a 4, 5 pair. And that would have to be a 0, which I can't put in the Sudoku. So this one has to be a 7 in order to allow the 9 cage to have any chance of working. Now those squares are now 3, 5 and 6, and we must put the lowest 2 together in order to give this a chance to be a positive integer. So that's a 1. This square's a 6. And now this 7 means this can't be a 7 as well, so that becomes a 6. These become a 1, 2, 3 triple. That's not a 3. Can't. Oh, this was the 22, wasn't it? Have we done something useful with this now? Ooh, okay, so if this is 6, 7, 9, the 6 would have to go there. That would have to be the 9. This would have to be the 7. If it's 5, 7, 8, the 5 would have to go there. And this would be an 8, 9 pair. Oh, bobbins, that doesn't work. Apologies. Okay, so I've now got... We've learned some things about 6, 7s and 8s. Oh, 7 I can place in... Ah, yeah, hang on. Look, this 7 places a 7 there, which places an 8 and a 9, which doesn't resolve my 22 cage. Oh, you rotten thing. You rotten thing. Okay. But we can do a trick, I think, with the 12 cage, look. Yes, we can. Can the 12 cage contain an 8? The answer is no, because I've got a 1, 2, 3 triple in box 4 already. If I put an 8 in here, the other digits in this 12 cage will have to be a 1 and a 3. So if I put 8 here, for example, this digit's got, there's no way I can fill this cell because the 1 and the 3 have already gone in the box. So actually, you can't put an 8 in there. By Sudoku, you can't put an 8 here. So there is an 8 in the 22 cage, which means it is 5, 8, 9, which means that's a 5. And that might be helpful. Maybe. There's now definitely a 6, look, in the 12 cage by Sudoku. And what are the other digits we've got to put in? 4s and 7. Oh, I see. So the 7's got to go here in order to not break the 12 cage now. And this is a 4, 6 pair, which means that square has become a 2, which places a 1 on the diagonal. Oh. So there's no 1 in those squares. Not actually thought very much about the diagonals recently, so that's probably an oversight on my part. Let's have a think. There's 4 here, so we can remove 4 from that square. One of these 3 squares has got to be an 8. 5 as well. We've not put 5, look, into this, into row 6. So there's an 8 and a 5 along here. these squares are very small as well. They're 1, 2s, 3s and 4s. Okay, so in order to make the 15 cage work, we definitely need an 8 in it. Because if we don't have 8, then the next highest digits I'm going to be able to select are going to be 5 and 3. And 5, 3 plus 4 is only 12. It's not nearly 15. So we can't put... we must have 8 in the 15 cage. Now, if there's no 5 in the 15... Oh, you can still do it. 8, 3 and 4 would work. That's a shame. So we can't actually... We can't fill the 15 cage. This square is not a 7 by Sudoku. Look, this 7's looking down at it. Oh no. I feel like we're nearly there, but not quite. Now 1 can't be there. 1 can't be here. Do we know anything about... Ah, yeah, okay. Now this 10 cage might be interesting. And that's because in row 4 I've not put 6 and 7 in. So there must be a 6 or a 7 in the 10 cage. And if there's a 6 or a 7 in the 10 cage, there must be a 1 in the 10 cage. And where does the 1 go? Don't know. But I do know it's in one of those two cells, I think, because it can't be on the diagonal, because it seems to have to be in one of those two positions. You definitely can't have a 4 in the 10 cage. It's either 613 or 712, and there's definitely a 6 or a 7 in those squares. And I've still got to put a 1 on this diagonal, so it's either here or there. And what I'm checking, by the way, there is I'm looking at cells that see both of these squares to see whether we can therefore rule out 1s from them. And unfortunately, one of the squares is that one and one of the squares is that one. So I can't, which is irritating. No, okay. If I knew this was a high digit, it would be very, very useful. Oh, no, no. Ah, okay. Okay. What I was thinking about was to... I am so stupid. I am so stupid. Ah! I was desperate for this to be a 5, so I could put it in the corner. But of course, what I should have done is just say, if it's not a 5, where does it go in green? And the answer is, if it's not a 5, it has to go in a corner where it cannot go. Because wherever the 6, 7 and 8 go, let's put the 7 here just for the sake of exposition, this 7 sees that cell and that cell. So if this was a 7, it would have nowhere to go in the other corners. So the reason this is a 5 is not because it's in a corner. It could absolutely still be on an arrow, although it's running out of places it could go on an arrow, but it's because it simply can't be a 6 or an 8, because if it's a 6 or an 8, it would have to go in a corner where it can't go. So I was being short-sighted, and now if this is a 5, that's a 2-3 pair. Now have we broken the back of this? That's a 4. Oh, yes we have. Yes we have, look. Now I've got a 4-1 pair here, and I need to put a 1 on this diagonal. So it can only go there. Now, that means this 5 arrow is a 2-3 arrow. It means that I've got to put a 3 into one of those squares by Sudoku. This square's a 1 by Sudoku because of this 1 over on the right hand side. How many 1s have we actually placed? The answer is several, but not quite enough. Oh, but this one is seeing that. How did I not see that before? Gosh, my scanning is even worse than usual. So that's a 1, that's a 1. That means this is not a 1, which we already knew. I've nearly got interesting things. Oh, hang on, look, that's a 2 now, and that's a 4. Which means I've got more joy going on. Oh, I've now got a 1, 2, 3 triple in row 5, so this becomes a 4. Now I can't put 5 in my 15 cage, or it's not going to add up. So that has to be, we know there's an 8 in it, we know there's a 4 in it, that's got to be a 3-8 pair. And that means this square is a 5. And if that's a 3-8 pair, this square is a 2. Oh, good grief. Okay, here we go. Maybe we are starting to unravel our sushi roll in a most delicious way. That's a 6-7 pair. Have we really done it, or are we still struggling? 3, where does it, just by Sudoku, 3 has to go here in box 7. That fixes my 8 here, gives me a 3 there. This 6 is giving me a 6 and a 4. That might be important. Come on. 8, 6, 13 there, 18 here. I'm sure that these cages will give me some sort of joy if I investigate them, but let me just see if there's something quicker that we can do. 2 is quite restricted in box 9, one of 2 places. Oh, in fact, yeah, look, 2 on this diagonal, where does it go? It's got to go in box 9, so it has to be there. Which means 2 on this diagonal has to be in one of those 2 cells. And again, 2 on this diagonal. Where does it go? It's got to be in box 3 this time, so it's got to be here. I want to resolve this 8 sum, because I think if we could do that, I would know what the corner squares have to be. If this is 1, 3, 4, then because there's a 5 in purple, I would know these were 5, 6, 7, and 8, and that might be helpful. Let's look at this column. We need 4s, 8s, and 9s. This square is an 8 or a 9. Okay, so that's nice. That places 4 there. Now, what next? Is there anything easy here? How can that square be a 3? It can't be. These squares are 7, 8, and 9. Can't see if I can resolve those. Apologies if there's some simple way of doing it. Let's have a look at column 7 actually. We've got most of the digits in that. We need 3s, 5s, and 9s, and rather irritatingly, oh no, that's only got 3 and 9 as an option. Oh, it's not got 9. This is a naked single. That's only got the ability to be 3. That fills in those squares. Means this square is now a 9. That square is not a 9. And on this diagonal we need 6s, 7s, and 8s, which is not terribly surprising given what we discovered about corners. How can I not have resolved this 2, 3 pair? At the moment this resolves, it gives me the 8. Let's look at this diagonal. We've got 5 digits on it. We need 4, 5, 6, and 7. So this square's got to be a 6 or a 7. That square is a bit restricted. 4, 5, or 6. 5, 6, or 7. That's 4, 5, or 6. This is just 5 or 6. Don't believe it. Okay. Oh, you can't put a 5, look, in the 18 cage. You also can't put a 1, 2 or a 3 in it. So if there was no 4 in it, it wouldn't work, because then it would be 6, 7, 8 as a minimum. 6, 7, 8 adds 21. So there is definitely a 4 in the 18 cage. Yep, that's not useful. Yeah, okay, well, but at least I suppose we know its composition. If there's a 4 in it and the other 2 digits add to 14 without using a 5, they're 4, 6 and 8. Which means these squares here are 5, 7 and 9. That's not 9, that's not 5. These aren't 7, which actually resolves some things. Gives me a 7, 9 pair here. 6 and 7 can go into the grid. This becomes a 6 on this diagonal. That might be helpful because that gives me a 5 here, which finally, I've been waiting for this for a long time, but now I know there's a 5 in the corner. And that's 5 in the corner means that's going to have to agree with this, because now we know that these squares are a 3, 4 pair, and that once this is a 3, 4 pair, the only place a 5 could go in green is in a corner. So this was, it just took me forever to figure it out, but that is a 5, 6, 7, 8 quadruple in the corner cells. And now I suspect the puzzle will collapse. 2s and 3s go in there. 5s and 9s go in those 2 squares. 7, 8. This is 4, 7 and 8 down here. 4, 7, 8. That's not 7. This 7, 8 is not resolved for some reason. What about that? That must be resolved. Yeah, that's C6 on the diagonal. So the 4 and the 6 go in. Those 2 squares are 3 and 5, which also go, not 3 and 5, 3 and 7. That still works. That 7 gives me an 8, that gives me a 7 and an 8 over there. That's become a 9, that's a 9, that's an 8. 4, 7 and 8. This must be resolved, yep, that's a 5. Those squares there have got to be 6 and 9, which isn't resolved. This 7 sees the 9 here, so they become a 7 and an 8. This becomes a 5, this becomes a 9, that becomes a 5. 13 means these 2 squares are a 6-2 combination, which we can fill in, giving us the 2, 3 at the bottom. This 3 gives us the 3, 4 at the top. Now this column should be done. 4, 6, that's an 8. That's an 8, that's a 7. They are 4 and 6, 7 and 9. Come on. Oh, 7 here gives me the 7 and the 9 and the 9 and the 6 and the 6 and the 4 and the 8 and the 7 and the 4 and the tick. Yes, and that is the most inefficient way possible I could possibly have found to solve that puzzle, and I'm very sorry, Sudanon, for taking that long to do it. I think there were a myriad of opportunities for doing that more sensibly. I don't know. I felt like the jellyfish was nice to start, actually. I felt like that might be necessary. Although I'm saying that and I'm wondering whether that's true. No, that's not true. It's not true. You don't need the jellyfish to start if you think about the set to start. Because if you think about the set to start, you can work, because you then know that greens and purples contain the same digit. If you try and put 9 in the purple anywhere, you can't put it, it just doesn't exist in the green anywhere. You can't put it anywhere because you can't put it on an arrow, and you can't put it in the corners because of the middle cell being a 9. So you didn't need the jellyfish. That was all a red herring, which is mixing metaphors in a strange way. But once you figure out the set, yeah, the simple way to do it is to figure out the set's important, and then figure out the 6, 7, 8 have to be different, which I did do. I will credit myself very slightly for that. But what was so appalling was row 8, column 3. I was obsessed with the idea of whether I could create a 5, 6, 7, 8 quadruple in the corners. by force, whereas I should have thought about it the other way round, which is, can this square actually be anything other than 5? Because the moment it's anything other than 5, I have to repeat a 6, 7 or 8 in the corners, which is obviously impossible. And that would have given me this 2, 3 much more quickly. And after that, I didn't feel like I solved it very efficiently. I have to say, even then, I felt like I really had to dig deep in a couple of places. There was something around this square not being able to be, those squares couldn't be 1, 2, 3, that couldn't be a 4, 5. I mean, that might have been available very early. In fact, that could even be the correct way to break into the puzzle, to realise that there's no way this could be a 6, so there's actually a 7, 8, 9 triple in column 8. And what else could I have probably got earlier? Oh yes, this square had to be an 8 very early as well, because as soon as it's not a 9, it can't be any other digit, because otherwise these 6 cells here are going to add up to too low a number. So yeah, go on, let me have it in the comments. I know you're going to. I am on holiday, so hopefully you'll forgive me. But it's a beautiful puzzle, my goodness me. It may look like a sushi roll, but it is, it's every bit as delicious from a solving perspective. So pseudonym, I'm sorry I was a bit slow, but I did enjoy it mightily, and I learnt a few things about how bad I am at Sudoku in the course of solving it. So anyway, we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.